Well, it looks like we have predicted 8 o'clock at 7:30. It looks like I wouldn't say red pill YouTuber. He's more just in the dating advice scene, but he doesn't agree with all red pill concepts. But he's like in that same kind of manosphere category. He's not black pilled, so there's a lot of gaps in his knowledge. But he's in that sphere sort of, and a big thing that he was preaching for a long time is to just accept that you're balding. And while this guy actually has a lot of good advice, I'll give him that, because remember, I do believe that even if a test is 90% multiple choice, your genetics, your physical looks, you still want to pay attention to the 10% writing portion, which is, how you behave. So yeah, it's a small portion, but these things do matter, and he's got a lot of things correct. The way he's came to these conclusions, may have been a little bit different, but at the end of the day, he does have some good advice. So credit where credit's due. He does have a very good understanding of female nature for sure. I put a lot of his theories to the test too, and synergize them with my own theories, and synthesize them with my own theories. And he knows what he's doing. But one piece of advice that he tried to give out, which I had a big problem with because I felt it was absolutely detrimental advice to people. So we actually covered this on the main channel. I made a whole video about this and how there's a healthy balance between acceptance, like genetic acceptance, being stoic and accepting what you cannot change, while at the same time improving what you can change. And hair is something that you actually can change in the modern day. It is not something that you have to fully accept, like your eye color, for example.
As well, I'll never get a hair transplant to increase attractiveness.
And I think this is quite retarded advice.
I literally don't care. I could go bald. I don't care. I will never get a hair transplant.
Hair is something with modern technology, this current scientific advancements, you can make changes in. So he was preaching that you should just accept that you're bald. He was very big on just saying, I'm at peace with the fact that I'm balding and you should be too. And I thought this was very harmful advice to the youth, especially. People who especially are in the phase where they don't need a hair transplant and they could stop it in its tracks with the use of finasteride and regrow the thickness with minoxidil. So this is very bad advice, I felt. But I prefaced that video by agreeing with him that I believe you should have a sense of acceptance as well and being stoic in regards to the things that you absolutely cannot change or the things that are just far too risky to change. Like any surgery, facial surgery that doesn't have to do with removing a flaw, but you're trying to increase your harmony to ascend, the risk to reward doesn't usually make sense. You're going to end up looking, uncanny in many cases, more often than not. Like there are some outliers where they can ascend, but the odds are not in your favor typically. Anyway, the point is there are some things that genetically about yourself, it is in your best interest to accept, and you should be at peace with these things. But at the same time, you need to also acknowledge that there's been adaptations in the modern environment to where something where decades ago you would have needed to accept, like losing your hair, for instance, now in the modern environment with scientific advancements, you actually don't need to accept those things, and you actually can make changes on them. So hair transplants is one of them.
On the inside is what dictates and determines if her girl emotions actually like you and if her emotions work in your favor. She's not going to all of a sudden say, oh, I don't like him, or like, oh, I would have liked him and I would have started talking to him more if his temples had more hair towards them. Like, this is just absolutely ridiculous.
Friend is going bald and I hate bald men. How can I change the way I feel? I am having a difficult time adjusting to it, and it's affecting my sexual and physical attraction to him. Should I end our relationship over this? Balding is noticeable despite combing your hair over your hairline or trying to fashion a new one further back. Most guys who are balding will need to halt and reverse it if they want to keep their looks. The first port of call is finasteride.
And I'm not going to say if he saw my video. However, I will say there actually is a chance. You would be very surprised to see that people will often search up their names on YouTube, and I put his tags in the YouTube tags. I put his name, so if you search his name, you will eventually come across my video on him, and he's in the thumbnail. So I would not be surprised if he saw that video, he saw the way I addressed it and how I acknowledged his point of view, because if you want to change somebody's mind, whether it was followers of him or even him himself, you always want to make sure that you acknowledge their point of view and you address the validity of the things that are valid, and it will sort of help them be a little bit more open-minded. And I think that was a really good way to preface that video. I think I might have made a joke like calling him retarded or something, but overall, I think it is certainly a slim possibility that my video may have influenced his decision. And if not, then it could have also been the comments I sometimes leave on his account. I say, like, you know, just take the black pill at this point, bro, because little by little, this guy has been starting to embrace black pill concepts over the past, I want to say, a year or so. I've been watching him for a long time. And it's been funny watching how he's evolved, and little by little he's starting to acknowledge that there's a lot of truth to not just your looks, but genetics and some unchangeable things as well. And he's trying to synthesize these ideas with his own philosophy. So he's kind of doing like what I'm doing, but he really isn't at that phase yet because he's just not exposed enough to the black pill. There's still way too many gaps in his knowledge, but it is very fascinating to see his evolution, and this is the evolution that many guys are going to encounter when they face the truth with things like balding. If you're someone who grew up, you know, full set of hair, and you're getting attention from your physical looks, you know, you might have the mindset that it's got mostly to do with your behavior, but then all of a sudden something with your looks starts to significantly change. Like this guy started really thinning out like a significant amount, balding very significantly to the point he had to address it on his channel and talk about why he's never going to get a hair transplant. You know, you start questioning things. You start questioning your own philosophies. So now he's at the point where he's literally decided to go against his own advice, which was just like a month or two ago. Just a month or two ago, he's now done a complete 180 and decided to get a hair transplant. And I say bravo to him for not feeling like he dug himself into a hole and letting his ego get the best of him. I say bravo to him, and I'm not being sarcastic at all. Like, I say bravo to him because it's not only important for himself, but he's setting a good example to a lot of struggling men out there. And this is me sympathizing with the men on an individual level. You could obviously make the argument like, well, this makes it more competitive for everyone overall. Okay, we're not going to talk about if this is a net benefit or not. I'm saying like on an individual level, like I sympathize with a lot of these struggling guys. You know, if I meet a guy who's balding, I feel bad for him. And it feels nice when I see that guy being helped out. But I'm not analyzing it from a broader perspective. I'm not thinking about eugenics of the offspring or whatever, because obviously those same genes are still going to get passed down to the offspring. So there's conversation to be had there with surgeries and hair transplants and all this. And that leads me to another topic, gene frauding. Unfortunately, since he's a social media figure, unless he were to just take a lot, no, he can't even hide it because people would see the difference. Yeah, he's unfortunately in the position where it is probably impossible for him to have hidden this. Probably impossible, unless he were to literally go through a period of 2 years, waste 2 years of his somewhat youth, and like going completely shaved and coming back and hoping that people wouldn't notice the difference. It would have to be such a strategic way of going about it. So yeah, there's no way he's going to be able to hide this. Unfortunately, there are a lot of caveats to gene frauding, but overall, getting the hair transplant versus balding is still going to be a net benefit, even though people are going to be aware you're gene frauding, because balding is just so bad. Gene frauding is, someone left a comment, they worded this perfectly. Gene frauding is the crime to the highest order. Yes, it is so true. But at the same time, balding is worse. So it's like you have to choose between the worst option, and the obvious decision is to get the hair transplant, even if you can't hide it. And you will have to be open about gene frauding. You have to do that. But if you're a regular guy watching this and you don't have a social media presence, and you can be strategic and like shave your head for like 6 months beforehand so people kind of forget what your hair looked like, you could go about it in a strategic way to like ease into the gene fraud and kind of get away with it. That's what you need to do. And you ideally want to catch it early enough to where you don't have to do a hair transplant. And then you could even play it off like if you did need the hair transplant, you could play it off like, oh, I just started taking minoxidil and it thickened up my hair. I know a finance YouTuber, like some e-commerce guy, I think he does brand scaling, Brez Scales. He's very open about the fact that he did minoxidil because he was balding at like 19 years old. And like it really doesn't hurt you that much when you admit to taking minoxidil or finasteride. Hair transplant, though, definitely hurts you. But admitting to taking minoxidil, like a lot of girls, they just don't know what the fuck that is. They don't know the significance of it. Not going to look into it much. It's not that big of a deal. But even then, like, you do want to hide that as well to the best of your abilities. But let's say you're confronted with it. Someone's like, yo, after you got a hair transplant, like, yo, I noticed your hair got thicker. What the fuck happened? Instead of just saying you got the hair transplant, just say, I started taking minoxidil, thickened it up. And just fucking blatantly lie. Yes, I'm telling you to blatantly lie. It's in your best interest because it's not a hurtful lie. It's not going to hurt anyone. Just try to hide gene frauding to the best of your abilities. Unfortunately for him, he's a social media personality. He was already balding to a high degree. Very difficult to hide the hair transplant. So it's like you either go the route of trying to hide it and inevitably failing, for sure, like he would have failed and made his brand look silly, versus now just being completely honest and open about it, admitting to... Well, he didn't really admit to fully changing his mind. He's definitely coping really fucking hard in the video.
So I got a hair transplant. I know I made this video right here saying like I would never get one, but here's my follow-up to why I did anyways, and I don't really care. So I just got a hair transplant. I'm also cutting. Still pretty jacked right now. And like I'm still jacked, but I got like a little bit fat over the past few months because I've been eating like a lot of like cake and ice cream. But I'm gonna go through like a huge glow up phase, and I'm also gonna tell you guys why I ended up getting a hair transplant. Like this shit is gnarly, and I know I made a video saying I wouldn't get one, but like I'll explain. So like I made a video how like, you know, if you're going bald, you could just accept it and it's good and like it doesn't matter. And like it's true, like there's a lot of dudes who attract tons of chicks while they're bald. If you look at Jason Statham, if you look at any like dude who's bald and masculine, yeah, you can attract women. The main reason why I got one is because I was sitting here and I got one in Scottsdale. It cost me like $18K roughly, I think, for like 2,200 grafts. And the reason being is because I just looked at like for example, I looked at my tax bill over the past like 3, 4, 5, 6 years or whatever, and like multiple six figures, right? So I was just like, you know what, screw it. Yeah, I'm gonna spend my money on what I want. If I want an 18K hair transplant, I'm only 30, I might as well just do it, you know? So like, yeah, it hurt like hell. And if I show you like the back of it, right? Like, I have no fear of going bald. I don't care. And I said I'd never get one until I realized, I was like, dude, like, I don't know how long I'll live. I was like, I have enough money to afford it. I was like, might as well. Face is super swollen right now. Like, super swollen. Puffy. My head is swollen, right? But I'm not going to sugarcoat this and be like, you know, I got one because I was reconsidering. No, it's purely like, you know, I was like, I have extra money. I don't know how long I'm going to live. I could have a heart attack at 55. Who knows? You know, then I only got 25 more years. I don't know what else I'm going to spend my money on. I'm not a materialistic person at all. Like, I could give a shit. I sold my Ferrari. You know, I downsized my living because I realized, like, money doesn't make you happy. Like, I don't care, right? I don't care. So I was like, I got one. But gonna post a lot of transformation stuff, still pretty jacked. Lost a little bit of muscle, but like, I don't know, just like, I want to be like natural, you know, healthy. Yeah.
He's like still trying to say like he doesn't care about it. He just did it because he had excess income, and he's like, yeah, fuck it, why not? Look, if that's how you got to think about it, fine, no problem. Do your thing, bro. I'm just happy to see that he's setting a good example now, because my view of this, I believe, is the ideal way to view it. Look, we're not right or wrong or whatever, but I do think that there are objectively better ways to live life that are going to lead you to a higher quality of life, to lead you to things that all humans broadly desire. And I believe my perspective on this and the advice I gave in that video like a month or so ago, it was accurate. And we see him coming to that conclusion now. Remember, guys, you got to accept the truly unchangeables, or the things that the risk to reward wouldn't make sense to change, like a very, very high risk surgery with a low chance to come out with good harmony, versus the things that you really can change. Hair is very changeable, guys. Just, try your best to hide the gene frauding. It is the crime to the highest order. The only exception to it, I guess, is like if you're also profiting off of it to a degree, like maybe some reputational advantages, like some looksmaxers like androgenic, like his career is built off of looksmaxing, so he's actually getting some career benefits with being transparent about it as well. But I would still say overall, like the gene frauding is probably worse than the little bit of clout he's getting, because pretty sure that guy's not making any money. Pretty sure he's making like barely any fucking money. So yeah, I don't know if I would agree with his route overall. It's a bit of a tangent again. But I just had to make this video. I was taking a shit. I open up YouTube. I see this guy has a whole fucking hair transplant now. I'm like, man, it's predicting 8 o'clock at 7:30. It was not hard to foresee. Like, I knew he was going to do this. I knew he was going to change his mind. It's just like, because I had faith that he was stoic enough to put his emotions and ego aside, at least to a degree, because he's coping in the video kind of still. But he's a pretty smart guy. I'm not going to say very smart, and this isn't to insult him. I just like to be objective with my observations. I wouldn't say very smart, but he's a pretty smart guy, and he's hyper-focused on dating for over a decade, and that leads you to come to some pretty valid conclusions. Plenty of stuff I disagree with him on, because I like to really analyze from my own experiences, really, but he has actually enlightened me on a few theories that I've put to the test in my own situations, and I've realized, like, that is true. That's the best way to test the theories, guys. Unfortunately, studies are really not ideal. Especially any of these like self-reported studies are all garbage. You see these podcasters and all fucking arguing with each other back and forth, citing studies and whatnot. But there's this great book from Robert Plowman's friend that he recommended. I think his name is Stuart something. Maybe the book's called like the Science Lie or something. I forget it, but it talks about how studies are really just, you really got to take them with a grain of salt, even more than a grain of salt, because they're so cherry-picked. And you could, with sufficient resources, you can generate any outcome you want. So yes, studies are a big midwit thing. Studies are something that midwits will like have full faith in. but you really have to think about every single study critically. Like, there's certain studies where you could be like, okay, this is really hard to fabricate, really hard to have some bias in, but you really have to analyze all of the studies and genuinely critically think about them. Like, okay, how could this have been faked? How could this have been bias? But your own personal experience, your own personal observations, that is probably as good as you could get. Now, that could still be biased too, because you could get blinded by your own emotions, but at least you're in control of that. But again, some of us are better than others at that. So even your own personal experiences could be flawed too. But that's like as good as it gets. Like that's as good as you could possibly get. Or you can just trust my genetic abilities in being able to analyze my experiences, just take my word for it. I mean, I guess that's why you guys watch me, right? But I'm not saying I'm above the midwits. I'm fucking retarded. But retards happen to often come to the same conclusions as the high IQ. The midwits are the ones who often deviate. That was quite a tangent. We'll talk more about studies and how you need to be very skeptical of all studies. That doesn't mean ignore all studies, but be skeptical of studies. But yeah, had to make this video. Props to Casey, and the guy does have good advice. I disagree with a lot of things for sure, but he's definitely one of the ones who's got it figured out a bit better than most of these other dating gurus. Don't buy his course. Like, don't spend money. You don't need to do that. But I'm just trying to give you guys like advice on other sources who have like good things to say, because you do want some diversity. You don't want to just listen to me, because we're all very different people. You're going to resonate more with certain theories from other people who might be a little more similar to you. So I think it's also important I recommend some people to you. But yeah, so he's got some good things to say. He needs to be enlightened to the black pill more. He's coming around to it little by little. A lot of gaps in his knowledge right now, but eventually he will come around. The way I'm seeing things play out, eventually he'll come around. It is counter to his incentive to sell his course. So I think it could take a while. He's probably going to have to start with making a looksmaxing course, and then you'll probably see him going down the route of clavicular, where, you know, Clav is a genetic determinist, but he puts on the facade of believing like you could change a lot more than you really can, which is fine. You know, he's still helping some people, but all right, that's enough. That's enough. I think you guys get the point.